Okay, hello guys. So in today's session, we will be actually looking at a very brand new paper, and I will be actually discussing my approaches towards reading and understanding a particular paper. You can also suggest some of them if you have some of your best practices to understand a new paper, right? So let's actually try understanding a new paper which I have never seen, right? So before than that, you must have a good selection criteria for downloading a particular paper and reading it, right? Because not every research paper is worth, right? Some of them might be actually not giving you enough essence or say insights about the topic you might be wanting to discuss or discover. So let's actually see. Okay, so currently I'm actually trying to find something about DeepFace. So what I will be actually doing is that I will actually going to Google Scholar first, right? And I will actually seeing for the papers related to that. So on the Google Scholar, actually you will get all the results as papers or citations listings, right? Other than that, if you will actually just generally search on Google, it might not show you the best of the results, right? So I'm actually gonna tell you some of the tricks which you can use in your research progress, and you can also learn better. So firstly, let's if we actually try searching deep face, right? So yeah, so it will actually show me multiple papers, right? Something like that, right? Okay, so first thing you will actually need to look at is towards the citation count here, right? Here it shows 6,625 citations. In this way, in this one it shows 1,718 citation, and this one shows 8,414 citations, and that's actually huge. It's really huge. It takes something to get even one citation. If you have done good work, then you will actually get the citation. Otherwise, it's very hard, right? Because other people or other researchers will only cite you if they find your work useful and something contributing towards the community. So this is actually looking somewhat nice, right? Closing the gap to human level performance, right? I'm actually reading this kind of stuff for the first time, so let's see how to. Okay, so for those for which the PDF is actually available, it will actually show a PDF here, right? A PDF in a text here, so you can actually download the PDF directly. Otherwise, other than that, I will also show you one particular method you can try to download a particular paper which is actually not available in the form of PDF, because not every article is actually free. Another thing I will actually discuss about is about the filter methods, right? You can also filter papers right here. For example, you can actually supply a custom range that the papers published from this particular year to this particular year, and then search accordingly, right? You can also sort by date, means you can actually sort by descending order or say ascending order as it actually shows you. So it will actually give you the papers sorted. I say the first one is from 2024, right? And then going towards the early papers, right? There's endless listing, right? You will actually get the listings from 1 to 8 and next for this. There are a numerous amount of papers, right? So yeah, so currently we are just searching for this one, right? So let's see if the paper is actually available for this one, as it shows the PDF is actually available. So if I will be actually clicking at this PDF option, it will be giving me this particular paper, right? Okay, so that was one way. When you have this paper available, we will actually download it and we will actually study this particular paper, right? So deep files, this one, right? I just downloaded it just a few moments ago. Okay, so so the paper is now available to us. But what if you actually find some paper for which you are not given the PDF? So let's actually try finding some of that paper. So let's see if there is any GitHub.io discriminative decision. Okay, so for example, if I actually try finding this particular paper, right, over the internet, right? So there's a source, say SCI Hub, from where you can actually download the particular paper. So you can first try finding the ISBN number of the particular paper. So if you actually go to this particular paper site, you will actually try, or you can actually try finding the DOI, right? So you can see the DOI must be available somewhere around here only. So let's try finding DOI. Okay, so this is actually just mentioning to different other papers, right? And normally you will actually get that from the URL itself, right? You don't need to search anywhere on the page also, because it's generally actually mentions that only, right? Okay, so this is actually a part of a book series, right? Okay, so we can actually try out something else like let's say for deep face only, something like that. Right, like we can actually try searching over Google only. So paper, yeah. So here we have that, and here's also the PDF directly available. But if it was not there, you might have actually gone for the DOI, right? The DOI of that particular paper, and then what we have done is that we must have searched SCI Hub, right? SCI Hub. You will actually get a number of links for that particular SCI Hub, and what you can do is that you can first search the DOI of this particular paper from the main paper site, right? So you will actually get in this listing, like for example IEEE Explore gives you the DOI in this manner. If you actually try searching the particular DOI over SCI Hub, let it open, right? So you will actually get to write the reference or say DOI here, then we'll actually click and it will actually try checking your browser for accessibility, nothing else. It will just take 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, after than that it will open the paper automatically. So this paper was available already, but it will also work for most of other papers which are actually provided to you as a paid version, right? So if you want to actually get some of the free papers, you can actually try out SCI Hub, right, or the similar sources, but SCI Hub is the best one which I have found till yet, right, to actually read papers which are paid over the internet. Well, it's actually not ethical obviously, but yeah, if you want to just read papers for knowledge and don't want to actually use it other way, then yeah, it's a good way to actually just have some knowledge from the papers itself. Okay. Also, you can also check that whether your university itself provides the access to those paper, because if you log in with your university ID towards the particular platform, say IEEE Access or some other platforms, right, like Elsevier, then they also, some of those also provides access according to your university, right? And if you just log in, you just don't need to pay, and you can directly download that PDF. So you just need to check out once that thing also, right? This helps a lot. So let's actually try reading a paper. Okay, so I want to actually also talk about some of the sources where you can actually maintain your papers, right? One of them is actually Mendeley, right? One of them is actually Mendeley. Let me show you Mendeley, right? So you will actually get this is a reference manager, right? What you will actually do is that you can actually sign in, and then in your section you can upload papers, read the papers online itself, also annotate in the paper itself in this online platform only. If you want a local platform, then you can use Zotero. Zotero. Right, so it is a reference manager, but it is actually local to your system, and you can just maintain all your papers in Zotero on your system only. So these are two good sources which I found and which I used to use for managing references, which you can also use, right? So yeah, and also there's another one that's actually called Research Rabbit, which I actually really liked it. It's actually called Research Rabbit. So what you can actually do is that you can directly say search for this one, and it will actually be available. It provides a nice UI where you can search for papers, add them into different tags and collections and on your system, and then yeah, you can perform you just need to log in. It's free, right? So I'm not any I'm actually not doing any promotion or anything, but yes, I find these resources along the way, so I was just wanting to share with you so that you can also get some help and can manage, because it's really hard to manage all the papers and have the annotations also managed, right? Because otherwise what you will do actually is actually just download them locally, manage them in files, right, and then try to read those papers and try to maintain all those papers into folders, and then you might lose all those papers at the time of your thesis, right? So it's better to use such platforms because they keep a track for a long time, and also you can update them as per as your requirements, right? It provides a generic collection, right? Okay, so let's get back to our paper, right? So we will be actually trying to understand this particular paper, that how to actually read a particular paper, right? So the paper is actually not a simple document that you can actually read, kind of say like a tutorial. You need to actually switch back and forth between sections so that you can actually completely understand what they are trying to propose, right? Because a paper is written in such a manner that in some papers the information is kind of say encrypted, so if you don't know the base, then it actually becomes hard and it becomes boring to understand that particular paper, right? So you can actually start with two sections, from what I actually can suggest. One is actually your abstract, and the another one is actually your conclusion, right? So these two sections will actually give you a belief that what the paper was aiming to accomplish and what the paper has accomplished, right? So these are the major things. So if we actually directly read the conclusion, right, an ideal face classifier would recognize the faces in it. I used to use H for the annotation for now, right? I can also use Mendeley also, right? But yes, for now we are just using sticking with H and just showing you how you can actually get that, because I actually find it very convenient, because the other person don't need to log in. If the other person I am sharing the paper with don't have the Mendeley account, right? So they can directly just use the Edge, because Edge is actually available at everyone's system, right? Then it also provides me multiple options like say highlighting particular portions, or say drawing over the particular paper if I actually want to mark something, right? And also erasing them back, right? So one paper saved earlier can also be edited again into the Edge itself, so it's like a software now, not like just a browser, right? Also it actually gives me insights by if I actually want to just select something, right? If I actually just want to select something, like say if I've selected something, I can just ask Copilot about the questions about from this document only. So it's a lot more convenient, right? And also one more option I loved from this one is actually say read aloud, right? So basically you can just say select this version, read aloud, and it will actually just read aloud that one, that paper for you. So if you find it boring to read a particular paper, so you can just make it read it
6. Conclusion.
into multiple voice options, which are actually available by Microsoft, right? So
An ideal face
something like
classifier
that,
would
right? So
recognize
for
faces
now
in
it's actually as a
accuracy that is
default,
only matched by
and
humans.
yeah, you can just lie down and just listen to what the paper is actually telling about to actually get some insights, right? So whatever approach you actually wanna follow, you can actually follow to read towards a particular paper, right? Okay, so let's start. So this one is conclusion, right? So an ideal face classifier would recognize faces in the accuracy that is only matched by humans. The underlying face descriptor would need to be invariant to the pose, illumination, expression, image quality. It should be the general in sense that it could be applied to various populations with little modifications, if any at all. In addition, short scale, so you can actually read this by, right? So from this only, these lines only, we are already clear that they are actually doing some kind of say face classification, right? They're actually making some other approach towards a face classification, right? As the name also suggests, the deep face, right? So you are already getting intuition, okay? So there's a word, right, that there is trying to improve the accuracy in comparison to human level performance towards face classification, right? So yeah, so most important sections are the abstract, and then are the conclusions, right, and then the methodology, according to me, right? Also one more thing need to be kept in mind is that if you are actually sitting with a particular paper to read, then it's not necessary that you need to only go through the content available there, right? You can also try out the cross referencing. What is cross referencing is that it might be mentioning some of other papers in this work, right? So it might be the case that their work is actually based on some other work, right? And that work is also based on some other work, right? So you need to actually link through the chain and first try to find out the base paper from which these papers are actually linked. Only then you will be actually able to understand this paper properly, right? So for example, they have actually the references section is actually at the last, so you need to actually go through the reference section only by actually looking at the particular text. For example, they might be actually referring to some of the base works into their literature review, so you can actually have a look at those, right? So yeah, from the conclusion, we are clear that they are doing some sort of say face classification. But from the images and the figures, we are already clear that yeah, this is actually not just normal face classification by doing some sort of say network, right? Deep learning network, but there is a portion of say alignment, face alignment also. So they are kind of say aligning the particular faces to do better classification, right? So you can actually already see, right? Said that this person is actually getting detected that this was a particular face region, and from that they are actually getting the coordinates. So even from the side view, you are actually able to get the frontal view, something like that is actually happening. So try to get the intuitions from the say from the diagrams itself, because many of the papers and a lot of the papers actually try to represent most of the crucial information into the diagrams and the flowcharts itself, right? Because that's their primary source to actually tell you something about the work they have actually done. So you can already see that okay, so this is actually some sort of say okay, marking the points, right, which you actually get over the face, and then they are actually using some sort of say network, and after the particular network they are actually getting some sort of say representation of a particular vector, and yeah, then you actually get something from this particular architecture. So okay, so yeah, after that I actually want to say is that after reading the conclusion section, you might be wanting to see what actually has happened in this, or what actually is being performed in this particular paper. You have another option of say going through the table of contents. Sometimes if the paper actually is actually divided into subheadings, then this option also tells you those particular subheadings, and you can jump out those accordingly. So you can also use that. So here comes the methodology section. Let me actually get to that. Okay, so in this particular paper they are actually getting to the related work, right? And okay, so what does a related work section actually do? A related work section is actually kind of say a literature review section in which the author tries to tell about the different works or aspects which has been covered already in the literature or in the research community, right? And they actually try to relate and try to show that how they have actually improved upon the particular algorithms available out there in the research community, right? So this section is also important one where you can actually get a lot of say papers which on which some of which might be the base of this particular paper. But yes, that's actually not the case with all the papers. Essentially, normally people also try to make their own new invention without even reading one paper, right? And just see if there nothing like that has been done before. So their approach will be just to show and just to explain their approach in the best manner possible, instead of just basing their paper on some other work, right? So okay, so there has been a large scale in the neural networks like 2021 particularly. Okay, so yeah, this is just referring to some of other papers to actually make a solid base that okay, so their work is actually worthy and they are actually going towards the right direction, and this is the whole system. Okay, so here after that here only they are talking about the face alignment, right? So existing aligned version of the several phase database example LFW to help them improve the recognition by providing a normalized input, right? So essentially this problem has been addressed by the heading only. You can guess that what problem has been addressed. So a lot of problem happens in the face recognition is when the users used to the normal data on which the model is actually trained on are perfect images like the passport size photos images, right? But in the realistic scenario, the people might not be looking at the camera even when their face is actually getting recognized, for example the attendance system. So this they are trying to provide a particular algorithm, or they are trying to use a particular algorithm for aligning the faces to look towards the camera even if they are looking somewhere else, so that they are kind of say morphing. You might have looked at the morph option or warp option in the Photoshop, right? So you might be actually so they might be actually trying to kind of warp that particular points coordinates of their faces, which is looking towards left or right towards front, right? And then get a new image and then try to recognize that which person it is, right? So the methodology is something like that. Okay, after that they are also telling about 2D alignment and then 3D alignment. right? And they are actually proposing different models for that. So then they are actually talking about the frontalizations, and then they are finally talking about the representations, right? Okay, so after alignment work, what they are referring is that they are actually trying to represent what their data is actually coming out with. So now they are actually telling about their architecture, what their architecture is actually used by these people, right? So that the work is reproducible. Because when you will actually go to implement this work again, right? Like you might be actually going to work upon this problem only, right? If you actually choose this one, then you might be referring to that how to code this up, how to actually recreate the results which are actually available out there in this paper, right? Because this is the approach which generally people follow, right? I have seen that they used to try to recreate the results what are actually there in this particular paper, and then try to add some modification in this, so that they can actually improve upon that. If they are actually able to improve, then they get their paper published, which is actually a kind of extension of this one, and then tries to improve upon the existing algorithm. Okay, so what actually is the benefit of this approach which people follow is that because this paper has already laid out the baseline, right? That this work is actually worthy, right? Their paper is actually getting published, right? So there's a strong relationship that your paper might also be published because the problem statement is worthy, and if no one else has done that particular work or approach, has presented any approach which you are actually trying to present or propose, then yeah, you can actually get your paper published in a good journal with a high impact factor. Okay, so now they are actually telling about your inner details and some of the working principles, right? So then they are actually talking about the normalization of that this is the final stage which is actually added between the network, right? You might need to read a paper multiple times to actually understand it in a better manner, right? So now they are actually talking about the weighted chi-square distance, right? To actually evaluate their network. Okay, and then they are talking about this Siamese network, right? Okay, so many of the times this will happen to you, right? Say you will actually be concurring with, say, an unknown word, right? Say unknown word like the Siamese network, right? So because you see, for till there they were actually not referring about the Siamese network, but suddenly they are actually trying to use a new term. Now the thing is that you might get confused in this particular case, that what is this Siamese network, and what how this works, and how they are actually referring to this one. So what they expect from you, what these authors expect from you, is that you first need to read the Siamese network paper there, because this is an unknown term and this is not a generic term, right? So basically you will actually need to find out something about the background of this Siamese network first, right? Okay, so they are also, for example, I was actually telling you about the cross-reference. So here only they are actually already telling about the 8 as the reference, right? So basically let's actually go towards the 8. Then we actually can see that there must be a paper which is actually referring to the Siamese network in the references section. So 8 comes out to be here. Yeah, here is that particular learning a similarity metric discriminated with the application to the face verification. So yeah, there's another paper in which the Siamese network is actually being presented, right? As far as I know, the Siamese network is a network which is actually used for making encodings of the different face pictures, and then trying to learn a discrimination function between the two encodings. Something like that actually happens. It is used to in the attendance system a lot of times because it's used to cluster the similar faces. Some of the applications also include using them for tagging, right? The same person's tagging, right? Okay, so yeah, so this is that particular paper, and this is provided as PDF, right? So I can actually download it, this Siamese network paper. Okay, so basically it will actually ask you to sign in, right, through your institution. So if your institution allows it, you can just download it. Otherwise you can do what method I actually described. You can actually go to SCI Hub, right, and then you can actually just paste that particular DOI which you have actually pasted just yet, right? So it must provide you, because you see it was actually not giving you the PDF directly, it was actually providing you the PDF after sign in. So if you don't have an institutional account, you still want to read the particular paper, then you can actually use this one. So let's actually wait for some seconds until actually just checks our browser's compatibility, right? So if you actually paste the particular DOI, hit enter or click open, then yeah, you will be actually given. Okay, so this paper is let's see. Okay, so this paper is also available at this SCI Hub platform. So what you can do is actually directly download this particular paper, right? From this particular site, right? Okay, and then you can read it on your computer only, right? So that's actually simple as that. Okay. So Siemens network we have discussed in a bit. It is actually trying to. Okay, so let me actually give you a brief of these systems, right? That how they are actually working up and how you might use this systems for your working principle. So if you actually go first download this one, and we can actually try looking at the Siemens network so that you can actually develop a base or a solid understanding of what are the working principles in the face recognition and verification systems, and then you can actually get back to this particular original paper again, that is the phase which is using the Siemens network, right? Okay, so sometimes the paper only, the research paper only gives you the code and the data set itself, right? It might be hosted over some platform for the reproducibility. The Nature journal generally focuses on reproducibility because it provides a lot of codes which are actually available out there, and all the references and data is actually open, and that's why it has a very high impact factor, right? It's actually nice journal, nice platform to actually get your paper published, right? So here they're actually talking about the data sets, right? If you actually go for Google, you might find these data sets if they are available. If they're not available, you can actually go to this source. This might be referring to some paper which will be actually referring to that particular data set. You can actually get the link for that data set in that paper. It might be the case, it is not necessary, it will be available. But also the third thing you can actually try out is actually email the author of this particular paper that I want to actually do some research and extension work on your paper, and I want to actually get your data sets, the LFW and YTF data sets, right? YTF is actually YouTube videos. It must be available on the internet also, right? So this is the data set of the face recognition they have used in their say in their work, right? And then there comes the results, right? When it comes to understand the particular paper, then the results are much less important according to me, because you are actually not trying to compare currently, you are trying to understand the methodology. So till methodology you can read first, and when you actually comes to implement it, and after implementation you actually comes to validation, then you can actually come to this section to actually see if your metrics actually matches this one, so that you can actually verify that your implementation is correct to this particular paper. Otherwise not, because yeah, if you're actually not able to produce, there might be some difference based on the seed if they are actually not providing the seed in this paper. Otherwise you can actually set the same seed to all of the numpy and pandas, numpy and say base random seed. You can actually set as the same seed which they have used in their paper, and then you will actually get the same accuracy. Most of the times nowadays people use confidence score, right? So confidence interval are actually a way to actually give you a range in which the result will lie. So if your result is also lying in the same range and have the same confidence interval, then your results are good, and then you can be a bit sure that yes, your implementation is correct and you have done this implementation, and then you can actually think for updating this particular paper. Now the last point I actually wanted to discuss is that how to actually try find ideas to actually improve a particular paper, right? So generally before the results or in the results section, right, there is a discussion section, right? So the authors usually try to explore the ideas for the future work in the results or discussion section, right? They used to try to tell that this is a work which has which might be a base for the future work in this particular paper, and we might be trying to do this, and this paper was not able to do that, but we can actually do that in the further. So you can actually take ideas and try to implement those only, right? Because if you are not getting any ideas, any new inventive ideas for actually implementing your research further, then you can actually take ideas from the discussion section itself and try to implement. If you are actually able to implement that, and that actually has been not done by the author yet, then it might be a chance that you might actually want to contribute towards the research community by producing a new idea, and even can collaborate with that author only, so that you can actually good results, because research is actually a cooperative approach, right? You can't actually do alone anything, right? You need the knowledge from different communities, right? So you need to collaborate with different expertise, people from different expertise, so you can actually always collaborate with the authors if they are actually interested in. So that's all actually I was wanting to discuss with you, that how to actually approach towards reading a particular research paper, and some of the resources which I was actually wanting to share with you, to actually make your life easier while you actually doing your research. So that's all.